Hey everybody, I'm in Seattle, Washington, and Toyota was cool enough to give me the keys to this 2020 4Runner TRD Pro to drive while I'm here. The TRD Pro and the greater 4Runner line get some changes for 2020. They seem small, but they are fairly significant, and they help to keep this charmingly old school vehicle feeling fresh. Let's take a look at some of the cool TRD Pro stuff on this thing and some of those changes. Starting with the exterior, these things have been out for a while now, but if you don't already know, the best way to tell a 4Runner TRD Pro from a lesser 4Runner is that it says Toyota up front rather than showing the Toyota logo. TRD Pro stuff on this vehicle, it's got a steel front skid plate. It's the same part that has always been on these, but just a couple years ago they added that red TRD lettering, which I think looks really cool, especially with this army green exterior color. So every year the TRD Pro line of trucks gets its own unique color, and a cool little bit of trivia is that that color has, for the most part, quietly been a reference to the unique colors that were offered on the FJ Cruiser that was sold about 5-10 years ago. This year it's army green. There's also a new gray color this year, so there's 4 colors for the TRD Pro. There's black, white, army green, and a gray. As for other cool stuff back here, you've got the TRD Pro badge on the tailgate and on the C-pillar. Onto the wheels, they're a really nice matte black finish with the TRD center cap, and they are 17-inch wheels, which apparently is the smallest wheel you can fit on the 4Runner, just because it has to clear the brakes back there. But 17-inch wheel, pretty good for off-roading. Gives you a nice size tire sidewall. And speaking of these tires, they are Nitto Grappler all-terrains. They're a very mild all-terrain tire. Pretty quiet on the road from my experience. This thing has accessory running boards. I would not recommend having running boards on your vehicle if you're actually going to take it off-road. One addition to the 4Runner TRD Pro for the 2019 model year, so last year, was this roof rack that was heavily inspired by the roof rack that came on the FJ Cruiser. So it's kind of a basket style. I'll show you from above here. So it bolts down in 4 places, twice up front there, and then 2 more points in the back, and then climb up here. It's kind of cool how they do it. They just use regular 4Runner crossbars, so this is one piece all the way around, and then they just use 4 crossbars to give it kind of a basket style. So I think you could probably slide this one forward to make the basket even a little bigger. You could also probably add a crossbar if you wanted to kind of round this thing out. But yeah, it's functional as is. You could still, I think, probably mount, a bike rack up here, maybe. I don't know if it would clear back here, but you could mount some accessories up here. I think other things probably would be, wouldn't quite clear this thing, but it looks cool. That said, parking garages here in Seattle are, well, space altogether is kind of at a premium, and staying at this Airbnb over here, we barely cleared the parking garage. So, worth noting that if you live in an area with a lot of parking garages, make sure this new roof rack design will clear before driving into those garages. And as with any TRD Pro model, the big value add is with the suspension. So you can see up here you've got a Fox internal bypass coilover shock absorber up front. It's red, so you know that it's high performance. And then in the back, you've got pretty much the same thing. I hope I can show it. It's a similar design, but this one has piggyback reservoirs, which should help the shock to maintain its performance over long trips at high speeds. Worth noting, 4Runner TRD Pro does not come with a matching spare tire. So while you get Nitto Grappler all-terrains for the 4 main tires, your spare is just this basic all-season tire. You also don't get a matching TRD wheel for your spare either. Anyway, I think that about does it for the outside. I do really like the exterior of this thing. It's very boxy, really old school, feels bulletproof. Really do dig it. As for the cargo area, I've actually got some luggage in here that will allow me to demonstrate kind of a clever feature. So this thing has another accessory. It's this slide out tray for the cargo area. So it does take up some space. If I were to take this thing camping or use it for a lot of things where space is at a premium, I might remove this, but press this in and then you can slide all of your stuff out there to kind of give you a bench or a load floor that's a little bit closer to you. Makes it a little bit easier to load up, but decent amount of space back here. 4Runner is relatively spacious, much roomier inside than what you get with like a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. So yeah, and the boxy design obviously helps with space. So to put this back in, we'll just thumb to that. And there it is, locked in place. 2 handholds up here, and a little grab strap. No power tailgate on this thing. Blacked out 4Runner badges and the Toyota badge. And now we will climb inside. Okay, so I mentioned that there are two big things that changed with the 4Runner for 2020. One is that it has a new infotainment system. I believe this is an 8-inch screen, and it has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatibility, which is really cool. Toyota really drug their feet with adding CarPlay compatibility, and it's cool to see that this one, along with the other trucks, that's the 4Runner, Tacoma, Tundra, and Sequoia, they all come standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay for 2020. The other thing that the 4Runner gained is Toyota's Safety Sense. Now, Toyota's Safety Sense doesn't mean the same thing for every vehicle. In the case of the 4Runner, they kind of have to work with what they've got here, so that means you've got automatic emergency braking, radar cruise control, lane departure warning, so it doesn't keep you in the lane, it just beeps if it senses you drifting outside of the lane, and automatic high beams, which is one of my favorite active safety features. Otherwise, this thing is super old school inside, hard plastic, kind of a soft, I don't know that that's leather, I think soft, like leathery vinyl maybe, I'm not sure. 4 one-touch up and down windows, which is really nice. I think every car should have that. Top of the dashboard is plastic. I mean, this is straight out of 2009 right here. Moving around, I think the gray headliner is nice. It kind of keeps things airy in here. The TRD Pros have red stitching, and they also say TRD in the headrests. Down here, we've got 5-speed automatic transmission in this thing, which is nuts in 2020. But hey, whatever, it works, I guess. Manual or I don't know, actual gear lever for shifting into 4 low, which is really fun in this day and age. So the car is traditionally just rear-wheel drive. You pull down for 4 high, pop it up into neutral before going up 1 more into 4 low. Heated seats, another one of my favorite little novelty features of the 4Runner is the power rear window. So you press it, and the rear window comes down. 1 touch up and down for the rear window too. It's fun, makes it easier for loading and unloading things. As for some other off-road features here, one thing I really like is how they have these dials up top. This one handles crawl control, so it's like an off-road cruise control, and you can control that. You activate it via this button, and you can control the speeds via this dial. And then over here you've got multi-terrain select. You activate it via this button, and then you can select your different terrain modes. Looks like we've got sand, snow, mud, and rock, more or less. And those are for light to heavy applications. You've also got a button to turn off the active traction control system and a locking rear differential. Some other stuff up here, an SOS button, controls for the sunroof, and then a garage door opener right there. I like the sunroof on this thing. It's pretty big, spacious. It feels smooth, old truck, but everything feels smooth, quality. There's your visors. They pop out, and then, okay, so that thing comes out. So not as effective as the style that slides from the anchor point here, but oh well, I guess. We'll hop into the back seat just to give you a look back there. TRD Pro comes with all-weather floor mats, and they have this kind of cracked mud and tire tread pattern on them. As with most vehicles, not much to see back here. You get a light, some more red stitching, but I think a new thing for 2020 is that there are now 2 USB ports back here, and there are air vents. So other than that, fairly spacious. This thing is a body-on-frame construction with a solid rear axle, so it's not going to be super comfortable to ride in regardless, but decent amount of room for your backseat passengers. And then you get mat pockets behind both seats. Okay, another sign of this vehicle's age is that it doesn't really pass the water bottle test. The door pockets are too small. And then at first glance, the cup holders are too small, but if you pull this little thing out, the water bottle does fit. It just kind of gets wedged in there. But, so I guess it does pass the water bottle test, just not in the part that you would expect it to. Anyway. Oh, you also get a TRD shift knob on the TRD Pro. It's kind of a piece of plastic. It doesn't really add value in my eyes, but hey, it's something. And here's a look at the window sticker, so you can see that this is a 2020 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. The color is army green with a solid black interior, and as equipped, retail price comes in at $52,147. So for your money there, you get a 4-liter V6 with 270 horsepower and 278 pounds-feet of torque, a 5-speed automatic transmission, which is insane in 2020, multi-terrain select and crawl control, there's a hill start assist, there's a tow hitch receiver with both a 7 and a 4-pin connector. Moving on, no options with the TRD Pro. It does call out some TRD Pro specific features though. 17-inch wheels, the Nitto Terra Grappler tires, the TRD tuned Fox shocks and springs. That's obviously the big addition with this vehicle. Skid plate, grille, badges, TRD shift knob, all-weather floor mats, LED fog lights, the black roof basket, and a full tank of gas. And like I said, that all brings the total to $52,000. Fuel economy, this thing's pretty ancient. You get 16 city, 19 highway, and 17 miles per gallon combined. So I think that about covers the 4Runner. I was ready to hate this thing just because on paper it has an ancient engine, an ancient transmission. It hasn't been redesigned in like, I think 12 model years now. Super just old school all around, and still somehow Toyota manages to sell tons of them. This one's over $50,000. So it on paper, the value proposition just doesn't seem positive. That said, as soon as I sat down behind the wheel, it was like, okay, I get it. One thing I forgot to mention, the TRD Pro comes with a TRD catback exhaust that sounds a little throatier. It sounds cool, it feels cool, it bounces around a little bit. It's a super high off the ground, upright, boxy SUV with a high seating position. It's just cool. It feels cool. This one is army green. I mean, that's like probably one of the 5 coolest colors offered on any vehicle by any automaker. It all works. The black wheels, the green color, the cool roof rack that almost kept me from being able to use the parking garage at my Airbnb this weekend because it's so high. I think just little quirks and novelty items like that are what keep this vehicle selling and selling as well as it does. Like I said, I think it's had its best sales years ever in the past couple years. That said, there's a lot of stuff that's just old. It's obviously an old construction, so it doesn't have things like lane keep assist. It doesn't even have blind spot monitoring or parking sensors. I know 4Runner buyers don't really care about that, but those are things that other vehicles offer today that this vehicle just doesn't. Fuel economy is pretty dismal, 17 miles per gallon. I put about 400 miles on this thing this weekend, and I think I got like 17.5 miles per gallon. Did a little off-roading. It's fun, definitely fun to drive this vehicle off-road. You can drive faster off-road. That said, I live in Salt Lake City where there are tons and tons of places that you can drive really fast off-road, and I'm realizing that just isn't the case everywhere. And to really realize the benefits of the TRD Pro, that main selling point is the higher performance off-road suspension, and it's really hard to realize the benefits of that if you don't have somewhere to drive fast off-road nearby. So I think that's worth keeping in mind. The 4Runner TRD off-road trim offers pretty much everything, all the functional bits that this vehicle has, aside from the suspension and aside from the factory all-terrain tires, and it costs considerably less. I think like $8,000 to $10,000 less. So I think for anyone who isn't going to be driving fast off-road a lot, 4Runner TRD off-road is maybe a better overall value, but you can't get it in army green with matte black wheels and a really cool roof basket. And I think that's why this vehicle is so exciting and cool, and why Toyota sells so many and can charge $53,000 for this thing, because it's a cool old school SUV, and I think you really have to sit down behind the wheel and actually drive it and experience what it's like behind the wheel of this vehicle that's becoming more and more ridiculous as the years go by. So Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, did not expect to like it, wound up loving it. Thanks for watching.